Hi, my name is Michael Stevens and I'm author of the 2010 book Provolution, a guide to changing the world for your personal evolution. Provolution is about change. It's about change from the inside out and not from the outside in. So many of us look at changing the world, changing the systems, changing politicians, changing governments, changing the economic system, but we don't understand where the problems that we want to change come from. They come from inside each of us. We can all do our part to create change in this world, but first we have to take responsibility. Provolution is about taking personal responsibility for the problems in this world and beginning to change them by changing ourselves. It's no wonder that we're unable to solve the problems in this world when we're trying to solve the things outside of us. We first have to understand that what is going on inside of us is where the problems are created. We focus our minds on achieving what we desire in this world or avoiding what we don't want. We want that new TV. We're not going to be happy until we get that new TV. But what happens when we get it? We begin to suffer because new TVs come out. However, aversion. We don't want to be sick. So we're fighting off sickness, we're paying our insurance, we're doing all the things to stay well. Our mind is stuck in this cycle of desire and this cycle of aversion. But the natural world around us, like the place we're in here, says everything changes. The river beside me here, it's flowing all the time, all the time, all the time. We don't allow our minds to do that because we're unaware that we're trying to hold on to things and keep them the same. If we were able to live at one with nature and the ideas of nature and apply them to our lives, then we could find the peace and contentment that would solve the problems of suffering in this world. I'll tell you a story about how we hold on to ideas. It's about a teacher who's traveling around the country, and everywhere he goes a heckler follows him around and asks him difficult questions to embarrass him. One day, the heckler puts his hand up and he asks the question, "Teacher, are you saying that your way is the only way?" The teacher thinks about that and he knows that if he says yes, everybody's going to say to him, "Well, you're very arrogant." And if he says no, then people are going to say, "Well, what value does your teaching have?" So in return he asks the heckler a question and he says, "I want you to imagine that you've been traveling all over this country as I have, and you've been over the mountains, you've been through the valleys, you've been to the sea, and one day you come to this wide river and it's flowing so quickly that you can't cross it. And it's too far to go to the next bridge to go around it. What are you going to do?" The heckler thinks for a moment and he says, "Well, I'd get out my trusty blade, I'd cut down some bamboo from the side of the river and I'd make myself a raft." The teacher says, "Very well. What are you going to do when you get to the other side of that river? Are you going to pick up that raft and carry it around on your back in case you meet another river, or are you going to let it go and carry on unburdened?" Well, the heckler says, "You'd have to be crazy to carry around a 200-pound raft. Of course I'd let it go." And this is the parable of this story. We carry around ideas that we've learned from our family, that we've learned from our educators, that are roughly the same for the last 2,000 years. Ideas that have helped shape our society, shaped our thinking, and shaped who we think we are. And unless we can let go of some of those ideas and create new vehicles for our evolution and our provolution, then we're going to keep repeating the same patterns over and over again. The first mind raft we learn is that I am separate from you, and you are separate from everyone else. We have an ego, which I call I-go. The reason we call it I-go is because we also have you-go and we-go, which we'll talk about in a minute. I-go is the idea that I am someone separate and divisible from all other things. We develop this sense of I-go because we believe that there is something inside us that stays the same. But what is that thing that's permanent inside us? Is it the mind? Every day we have new experiences. Every day we learn new things. Every moment of every day our mind is changing. So our mind doesn't stay the same. Does our body stay the same? Well, we know that doesn't stay the same. Our cells regenerate once every 7 years. Our blood is always circulating around our body, changing temperature. Our heart is beating at different rates. There's nothing that we can find inside our body or inside our mind that stays the same. It's what is this idea of ego, the idea of me? That is the illusion. That is why we react as all of these things are happening to us. If we can let go of the first mind graph and begin to see that I am not a real, separate, indivisible thing, but a part of everything, connected and interconnected with everything, then we can begin to find peace. How we handle our emotions is a perfect example of ego. When I get angry at something, the first thing I do is I start to attribute blame. I got angry because he did this. If that hadn't happened, and she could have, would have, blah, 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 blah. And we begin to become the emotion. And emotion is something that's already inside us. It has a life force all of its own. It has an energy. It goes through 4 phases. It's born inside us because it's already there. It grows inside us because there's a certain amount of energy that's already within it. And it matures and it dies inside us if we allow it to. But what we do is when we get to that third point of its maturing, the mind starts kicking in. The ego starts saying, if I hadn't done that, if this hadn't happened, if she hadn't done this, and all the energy grows and it sticks inside us more and more and more. So we begin to repeat the patterns from our past. We say that our past has gone. It hasn't gone. It exists inside us, in the emotion that's stored inside us. And if we keep repeating that emotional pattern and not learning to let it grow and die, grow and die, and that wave of emotion gets smaller and smaller, then we continue to live in the cycle of suffering and repeat the past into our future.